Kelly with Potomac Beads. Join me in creating this nice rhythmic raw necklace. The necklace itself can become an anklet, a wrap bracelet. You can embellish it more. Last month in our subscription box to the Best Bead box, we went over wire working. We're switching gears this month and we're going to conquer raw. So we are learning right angle weave stitch in this single row as well as embellishing. Not only can you use the supplies that were in that section of the kit, but look through your box, dance around the beads, and figure out exactly what you want to include and incorporate into your beautiful necklace. Remember, if you do want to check out any instructions or any additional materials or the lists or the link to the boxes, check out that description underneath the video. Click on the Show More button and get all the links to the supplies online. So to get started with this Rhythmic Raw, the great thing about this with the box materials, you can really use anything. This is getting back to that fundamentals of the right angle weave. I have here 11-0 Toho in this semi-glazed Honeydew. I have my 8-0 Toho seed beads in that navy color. Then I have my silver lined olivine 8B, and those are Miyuki, showing that you can use multiple differents together, as well as Miyuki 11-0s in the galvanized silver. We're going to throw in a little bit of size and a little bit of color with the Amethyst 4mm rounds. Now for this design, we are going to conquer and learn that right angle weave. To begin, I have about 5 feet of beading thread, and you may need to add some more, but you want to start out with about 5 feet and a stop bead on that thread. We're going to begin with our smallest bead and go to our biggest bead. We're going to do a couple rotations where we just do the seed beads before we get into how to embellish the right angle weave. To begin, we are going to start with 1, 2, 3, and 4 of our silver beads. We're going to let those drop back to our stop bead, and I'm using a size 10 needle, and I'm going to sew back through the first 3 beads away from the stop bead toward bead number 4 and out. Right angle weave is made up of a series of boxes. We just created our first little box, or our first unit of 4. Progressing, we're going to add 3 beads every time. We're going to be using the bead that we're coming out of there on that right hand side is going to be the new bead that we're going to add as we progress in the design. So to begin, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add in here 3 more beads of my silver. We're going to do 1 more silver set. My thread is coming out the bottom of that right hand bead from the previous unit I just created, and I'm going to the top of that same bead. Add those 3 new beads on, and with the right angle weave you always want to come out through the right hand side bead. So I'm going to go through bead number 1 and bead number 2 that I just put on in that group of 3 and out. That has me ready now to create and start my next color. To start my next color in the progression, we are going to start by adding in 3 more beads, but we are going to be adding the middle bead as one of our 11-0. So we're going to start off 115, 1 of our 11s, 115. I'm starting with the Miyuki brand because I'm going smallest to biggest, and the Miyuki 11 is a little bit smaller than the Toho 11. Coming out the top there of that rightmost hand side bead from the last right angle unit, I'm going to go into the bottom. If you need more help with right angle weave, we have tons of videos. Coming out here, I know that that green bead now is my right bead that I want to come out of. So I'm going to go through the top bead, and then I'm going to come down through that bead on the right, which is that green bead, and out. Give a nice tight pull, and that 3 silver and the 1 green creates my next right angle unit. To continue, I'm going to add 1 green, followed by 1 of my Toho green there, and another 1 of the olivine. So 3 more beads go on. I'm coming out the bottom of this green bead. I'm going to go into the top of that green bead. Pull your thread and needle down, and then once again, I want to exit through the right-hand side of the raw unit. So through that odd bead that I've added, down through the bottom, and right angle weave is always going to work like a series of figure 8s, where One unit is going to come out through the bottom, the thread is going to come out through the top. I'm going through that last bead that sits on the right-hand side and out. From here, I'm progressing again. On goes one of my Toho 11s, followed by one Toho 8, followed by one Toho 11. Up through, coming out the top of that 11, I'm going to go into the bottom of that 11, adding those 3 beads. Sew through your top 11, or your bead number 1, and sew down through the right-hand bead, which is going to be your bigger bead. You can see how the beads are progressing in size and almost doing an arrow pointing. For my middle bead, we're going to concentrate on adding all the same color, and then we're going to have the beads come out in the same arrow directional. So I have 3 beads now of the 8 O's on. Coming out the bottom, I'm going to go into the top. The 3 navy beads go on. I'm going to sew through the bottom bead because that's the way my thread is going. And then we're going to sew out through again that right-hand bead. So we're doing single unit right angle weave here. We're just doing 1 row of right angle weave. It's a nice lacy design. You can wrap it around your bracelet, or your wrist rather. You can do it as a long necklace, about 21 inches. We'll get you 3 wraps around your bracelet too. And now what we're going to do is downgrade. So we're going to do the V's basically on the opposite side, which for this way, we get to put on all the same bead. So we're going to put on 3 of our semi-glazed honeydew, go up through that 8 O seed bead. This time we're at the top. We're going to go through the top bead in that right angle unit. And then we're going to go through that right-hand side bead, always coming out of the right-hand side bead. Coming out there then, we're going to add 3 of our next size of our 11 O seed beads, that Miyuki brand. Go again, come on out through, and make sure that you're coming out through the right-hand side bead. Give a nice, tight little nice pull, and then once again, downgrade. 3 silvers go on. Coming out the top of that 11, I'm going to go into the bottom of that same 11 O seed bead after adding my 3 beads, and then once again, come out through that right-hand side. That completes that whole set of that right angle unit. Progressing and degressing in those V's, building towards the darkest, biggest bead in the center. We're going to do that 2 times. And then after those 2 times, we're actually going to embellish that right angle weave. You're going to learn how to embellish it as well. So I'm going to continue on. And what I like to have is my silver spacing. So before we continue on, we're going to do 1 whole silver unit, just like we did at the beginning. 3 silvers go on. Go down through that same bead that your thread is coming out of. Through, this time the bottom, because that's where my thread is, as well as through the bead that sits on the right. Now we're back to the same pattern here, where we're doing 1 silver. We're going to start upgrading again. 1 green, 1 silver. Coming out the top there, we're going to go into the bottom of that same bead. So right angle weave is not as intimidating as everyone thinks. You're just building a series of boxes, generally at its most simplistic form, adding 3 beads on to the last box that you've created, always coming out through that right-hand side. Once you finish this pattern here, you will have conquered not only learning right angle weave, but also learning right angle weave as a pattern, and also learning right angle weave and how to embellish slightly. So here I am continuing on with my pattern, just repeating like I did previously, adding in my rotations here of going smaller to bigger. Again, when I'm going toward the bigger bead, I'm adding in the bead I'm working or coming out of, plus the next big bead, plus another one that I'm coming out of. When we're coming out of our big bead and we have finished and we're on the downgrade, that's when we get to add 3 of the same bead that's next size down. So you're watching me do this right angle here. You can always slow this video down. You can stop it. You can start it over. And now I'm ready to decrease again. So on go 3 of the next size down, which are those honeydew. And I'm going to continue on till I get my next, and you can see I turn it in my hand, continuing on until I get to my next blue 8 O section. So I'm going to do my 3rd one. And at that point, we are going to learn again how to embellish. So go ahead and continue on till you get to your third set, complete that third set of your blue 8-0, and then stop, and we'll continue on learning the embellishment before we progress even learning a new embellishment technique as we add in our amethyst beads. Now to add a little bit of embellishment as you're starting to conquer this right angle weave. Coming out of your last right angle weave section here of the 8-0, we're going to add a little bit of trim onto those 8-0s with our seed beads kind of wrapping around them. We are going to add onto our thread and needle 3 of our 11-0s in that silver lined color, 1 15 followed by 3 11-0s. I'm going to skip over the top of that right angle weave unit and come down through the left hand side. So I'm coming up the top of the right, I'm going to come down the left and pull those beads around the top there. Repeat the same, 3 11s, 1 15, 3 11s, and go through that same 8-0 seed bead on the right hand side that your thread was originally coming out of. From here, additionally, I'm going to go up through the first 3 11-0 seed beads that we just added. Give a nice tight pull on your thread, skip over that 15-0, and go right on in to the next 3 beads, down through the 8 on the left-hand side, and whatever beads of the 11s you catch on the opposite side. When I pull this is going to immediately, as you can see, change it from being rounded out to a little bit of a point, forcing that 15-0 to sit up higher. Here at the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing, taking my thread back through just the 11-0s, skipping over the 15-0, and then I'm going to exit after my 8-0 seed bead. Once again, give a nice tight pull to make those into little points, almost like a grape vineyard is kind of what we have going on here. And then we're going to go back into that downgrade. Back to 3 of the same color, and back through the 8-0 seed bead. I'm going to continue on with this, kind of having those points facing towards the 8-0 seed bead, going the whole way down to my 11-0 seed beads, and then we're going to repeat another section of our 8-0s in the exact same way before we get in and have some fun by adding in our amethyst beads. So after 2 rotations of just the up-down of that single rows here of your right angle weave, and then 2 of the embellishments, as you get back to the 8-0 seed bead, we're going to now add in our 4mm bead. To add our 4mm bead in, you're going to progress just like you've been, adding 1 8-0, the next size big bead, which is going to be your Amethyst Round, followed by another 8-0, going back into the bead that our thread was coming out of, and then once again sewing over till we're coming out the right hand side, which is going to be our amethyst bead. Just give a nice tight tug because you don't want to see a lot of extra thread there. And now, just like we did with the 8-0 seed bead originally, we're going to do the same with the amethyst, where we're going to put on 4 of our amethyst bead. So we're going to do 4 in a row, so we need 3 more that were picked up. We're coming out the bottom of the amethyst. I'm going to go into the top of the amethyst after adding those 4 beads. Give a nice tight pull there, back through the bottom, and back through the top here. That's going to get us our first little unit. We're going to do another unit of our amethyst as well. Now, if you want to, you can continue with this and then work in that second unit. It's up to you. That's a great thing about right angle weave. You can change it up however you want to. Look at the other things that if you got the subscription box that are included in the box, and add in some other beautiful materials if you want. Add in your next 3 beads. Coming out the bottom of that amethyst bead, adding 3 beads, you're going to sew into the top of the amethyst bead. And if you're struggling with the right angle weave, sometimes it's easier here to do with the larger beads and see the actions that need to be taken. The needle then goes through the bottom bead and out through the right hand bead, which is another one of the amethyst beads. We've progressed now into our largest bead, And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more embellishment. This is going to help to cover some of the thread and just bring a little bit more focus into these rhythmic little units here of my right angle weave. Coming out the top of that amethyst bead, go ahead and add in one of your 11-0 Toho bead. And I want you to sew back through the bead above. That's going to pop that 11 just there on the corner. Coming into the middle here, add one 15-0. Then we're going to do a little right angle unit that's going to sit on top. 4 of our green silver lined beads go on. So back through bead number 1 toward bead number 2 of those 11-0 seed beads and give a nice tight pull. When you give a nice tight pull, that makes one right angle unit there, and you're going to add one more 15-0 seed bead. Sew through the top of the next amethyst bead to the left. That's the next right angle weave unit top bead. That creates that little almost leaf there on the top. From here, add one more 11-0 seed bead. So we're going around the entire outside of these 2 units. Going down them after you add that 11-0 on. When you're at the bottom there, add another 11-0 on. So now through the bottom beads, going from the right now, or the left toward the right rather. Add in your one of your 11-0 seed beads in that, or I'm sorry, one of your 15-0 seed beads, followed by 1, 2, 3, and 4 of your silver lined 11s. We're going to make that little right angle unit, so you're learning how to make right angle units on their own now too. Going back through bead number 1 of those 11-0s toward bead number 2 to round that out to make that little almost leaf design here. And then again add a 15-0 through the next bottom 8-0 bead. Remember, working left to right. Give a nice tight little grab after that, making sure your beads sit the way that you want them to. Add one more 11 to corner that off and back up through the right hand bead that your thread was originally coming out of. So again, our thread was originally coming out here. We added 1 11, 1 15, did our little right angle weave, 15 through that 4mm, 11 down, add another 11, and then across. So we went towards the outer 6 beads are what we were all grouping onto. From here, guess what? It's time to downgrade again. Going to continue with my right angle weave, adding in 3 of the next size down, which is going to be my 8-0 seed bead. Continuing on with that right angle unit, going through the top and coming out the right hand seed bead. Adding 3 more beads for the next unit and continuing with that right angle weave. I'm going to continue, and instead of getting back up to the amethyst one more time, I'm going to put a little bit of space in between. If you're doing this as a bracelet, you can even just do it right in a row. I'm going to make one more rotation here of my just plain 8-0s with the little leaves on the side before I go back into that amethyst. So you can see the rotation here of 2 plain, then 2 8-0 of my right angle units that have the embellishment, then an amethyst, then back into that 8-0 unit, then amethyst, then 8-0, then back into that amethyst unit. I'm going to end up with a total of 5 amethyst units to make my necklace totaling 21 inches. That way I have the option, if I want to make it into a wrap bracelet. So I'm going to continue and continue and continue adding in these right angle weave units, getting the length that I desire. Once you're finished up with your pattern, and you can see how delicate this is, great for a wrap, the pattern is really fun, and you can really change this up to make it whatever you want to be. I can't stress that enough. And make sure if you do change it up, go ahead and give that feedback in the comment section below to help out other subscribers or other people that may be watching this design and using a multitude of beads. Would love to have your input as well. So coming out my last bead here, I went in like I was going to restart, putting on my green bead, and I'm going to pick up 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of my 15-0s. I'm going to grab a lobster clasp, but if you would rather have a wire guard and do a different clasp, you can do that as well. And then I'm going to go back through that same green bead, hence why I use the green one, just so you can see it. The 15 O's will go along the clasp like that, that's fine. Go ahead then and go back up through, we're reinforcing this clasp, going back through all of our seed beads, back through the lobster, and I'm going to do this yet once again. So we're going to have a total of 3 strands of thread going through the end here. And the nice thing with this lobster and with the right angle weave, you'll be able to actually connect kind of to wherever you want. So it's almost like an extender chain. From here then, I'm going to go back through my right angle weave a couple stitches. And then tie off and burn off my thread. On the opposite side, what we're going to do is make a loop out of our 15 O seed beads. You can use your 11s, you can use your 15s, kind of up to you. And you're going to make a loop for that clasp to fit into. When I do my knot here, I make a loop, go underneath one of the bridge threads, sew through that loop once and twice to make a nice knot. Give a nice tight pull, getting that knot in there. And then weave your thread back through just a little bit and then burn off the thread end. This side here, again, I'm going to take off that stop bead, get my needle onto there and do the same thing here. Instead of going and adding in a total of 7 beads, I'm going to add a total of 12 beads to make a nice loop. Once you have that loop made, then that will link in right to the lobster clasp. You can open it up, link that on, close it up. And again, you can make this as a great wrap. You can make it as a bracelet. Change up the pattern by changing up your embellishments and embellish some of the other beads. And I really hope this helps you to learn that right angle weave technique, because that is a building block for things to come. Thanks so much for joining me and creating this Rhythmic RAW necklace. Remember, there's so many variations, so make sure in the little comment section, give your feedback and help out the beading community. This is a great fundamental stitch that we really want you to conquer in order to build on for future subscription boxes. As always, you can post your design ideas, your modifications, and your finished projects in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making, as well as our Facebook group for the best box. If you do want to check out links to any of those, look in the description below, click that little show more button and get all the links there. If you haven't yet already, hit that subscribe button as well as give a little thumbs up, and that way we know that you love the videos and to keep them coming. Thanks so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see all of your differences and your renditions of this beautiful necklace.